Matthew Lillard.
Hey, what's up, dude?
Dude, welcome to On Film.
Wait, what's your last name?
McCarthy.
Kevin McCarthy. Okay, good. Yeah. Do it again. Sorry.
Oh, no.
Sorry, I was like, I want to say your name fully, and then I'm like, I don't know your last name.
I actually we'll keep it in the way it is.
Make Matthew Lillard look like an asshole.
I think it's funny. It's funny.
Good. Perfect.
Well, how are you doing today?
Great, Kevin McCarthy.
This is absolutely surreal to have you here because I've been watching your work at least since I was 12 years old. I mean, I'm thinking now the first time I saw Scream was 96, so I was 12. And so that was like to sit here now with all the roles that you've played in your career and be chatting about movies is incredible. And I started this show as a longer form craft-driven show to talk about cinematography, editing, score, your relationship to your DP, your relationship to your composer, your relationship to your director, but also just the different genres that you've jumped in and out of as well as an actor. I always ask this question off the top because theatrical experiences are so important. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is going to be in theaters, obviously. Scream 7 is going to be in theaters, so that communal experience of going to the movies is just beyond special. So for you as a kid growing up, what was the one that unlocked the special idea of the communal experience for movies? Well,
first of all, why are you so connected to the craft question? I'll answer that question. I think it's a great question. But not many people are drawn to that specific line of questioning.
Because I grew up, I saw Terminator 2 when I was 8 years old. And I didn't understand how somebody could make that. Like, how did Robert Patrick's character come out of the ground and become a copy of a security officer? And I remember just thinking, I want to know how that was done. So throughout high school and college, I would study DVD features. So I would get Lord of the Rings.
Right.
And I would go back. I was just telling Sam Worthington this a second ago because they do performance capture in Avatar. The old Lord of the Rings films, that was like early motion capture with Andy Serkis. And I was so fascinated by that, but also what a DP and a director talk about. What are their lens discussions? What are the aspect ratio discussions? And so I just wanted to start a show because as somebody who did press junkets for many, many years, you have 4 or 5 minutes in those conversations.
Brutal.
And I was like, so my wife and I moved to LA 4 or 5 months ago and I started this show. Yeah.
From where?
From DC.
Good for you, dude.
And so I just, that was the whole reason for starting the show.
What were you doing before the show?
I was doing, I was working for a local TV station in DC doing press junkets.
Oh,
and so
that's right. I did hear that.
Yeah, this show was born out of wanting to have
so good
longer conversations. So,
yeah, beautiful. Great.
Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah, well, thank you. And congratulations. I mean, I think that.
Thank you.
I do think that there's something so authentic about chasing an aspirational goal.
Yeah.
For reasons that you're driven in a pure way. And so congratulations, here we are.
Thank you, man.
And I hope you have all the success in the world.
Yeah, and I, by the way, at the beginning of the interview, I know you hear from fans all the time, they mention Scream and all the films that you've done, but like I wanted to timestamp that because I remember being 12 years old.
Yeah.
And I remember my friend's dad buying us tickets because back then you tried to sneak into R-rated movies.
Sure.
And I remember my friend's dad was like, no, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to buy a ticket for myself and you and my friend Ben. I'm going to walk you guys in and then leave. Because that way there's no way of you guys have to sneak in. An adult walked you in and you watched the film.
Right.
And I hadn't seen Psycho at this point. So I never seen a film where a character like Drew Barrymore's character died that early.
Crazy.
And it blew my mind as a kid. And that was a pivotal theatrical experience for me. I'll never forget it because I remember looking for the usher to make sure they weren't going to kick us out of the movie.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings me back to that question I was asking just now about like theatrical experiences that were pivotal for you growing up.
Yeah, I mean, look, for me, it's something, I mean, sort of similar. Look, Star Wars came out in 1977. I was born in 1970. That was like the perfect age for that film.
Yeah.
I don't have a memory directly related to it. I collected Star Wars action figures and played with Star Wars action figures like almost my entire life and way too long. In fact, when I went to New York when I was 21 years old, I went and one of the first things I did is I bought a collection of G.I. Joe and action figures. Because I was like, on a bad day, I may end up wanting to play with these.
Yeah.
Because it was something about, spoke to my imagination. So action figures were a big deal for me. But I do think, the first thing you said is like, what's a seminal moment in terms of going to the theater? I saw the very first screening of Blair Witch at Sundance. I'll never forget.
At that point, did you think it was so?
Yes, you had no idea that it was. You had no idea. The found footage was a new sort of genre that had never existed before. And I literally remember the lights coming up and me going, "What the f did we just see?"
Same. So you thought it was real?
Oh, I thought 100% thought it was real.
One of the
100%.
best marketing campaigns of all time.
Yeah. And the reason I was there was SLC Punk was premiering at Sundance.
Yeah.
And then my sister was running press for Blair Witch. She was a junior publicist on Blair Witch. What? And she's like, you have to come see this midnight screening. So at the midnight screening, filled with people that are like film freaks, like everyone was there for a reason. Like that community, you could hear a pin drop when the lights came up. And I was like, what was that?
Yeah.
But, you said go back further and sort of first. And so one of my first memories is going with my dad waiting in line and seeing Aliens in Orange County, California.
James
and,
Cameron.
That thing of like being scared, laughing, and being drawn into a world. And also like, back then you still had these really big cinematic weekends, like these, there was no streaming service. There was no other alternative to see a film. So you really had to go to the theater to see movies because there's no other choice. And so, my dad and I went by ourselves and it was sold out next to our house. So we went further away to go see it down by South Coast Plaza. And that to me stands out, and my dad's really sick now. So I'm like, what a gift of a memory.
And you share those memories. I mean, like those movies and those memories. Like I have similar situations with my father. Like going back when I was a kid, like it was like the best walking out of the movie and talking about them together.
Yeah, it's funny. My kids hate that. I literally, yes, because I walk out of a movie. It's my job. It's been my job now for 40 years, and it's hard for me. I think as films go along, our industry, in my opinion. Everything I say today is in my opinion, but it used to be run by men and women who loved films, wanted to make money, but they also wanted to make brilliant movies.
Right.
Like I think that Bob and Terry at Warner Brothers they were making, of course, they were making movies to make money, but they also cared about filmmakers and they wanted movies to be good. And now I do think we're in an era of filmmaking where people are just trying to make money.
Yeah.
And it affects the bottom line. It affects the storytelling. It affects everything. Yes, you have these big Marvel movies. Cinematic universe is incredible. They're epic. And every 4 or 5 years you get these movies that are incredible. Or you get a James Gunn that cuts through with the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
His latest Superman, I think, is fantastic. But it's, few and far between our studios, not filmmakers necessarily, but studios trying to make great movies. They're trying to make the most profitable movie they can.
And it's interesting because that is that classic juggling act, right? Of like art and business. And sometimes when those clash,
it's not
like,
good.
Well, I always think it's interesting. Like on a positive side, I think of Jaws, for example.
Sure.
You think about the shark breaking down and and how that the money was probably incredible on that. And then they realize, okay, wait, if we show less shark, we can scare the audience.
Incredible.
And it's that necessity is the mother of invention thing where like the business and the art kind of found a solution that ended up making the movie better in a weird way.
Yeah, but now you would outsource that to a digital house in Singapore.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now you're spending money for digital effects instead of solving it with creativity and chutzpah, right? Like now you're taking the lowest common denominator out.
Yeah.
And you're like, we're just fix it in post.
Yeah.
Right? There were times in filmmaking you would wait for the sun to clear. Like you would have DPs like waiting for the clouds to appear. Or go now because we have a break or we have backlight or you're chasing, you're up early at 4 a.m. to get a sunrise. Now you're building these 360 degree sort of like virtual environments. It's incredible. And I don't think it's bad. I think that invention and progress, all of that's fantastic. I'm not saying we have to go back to the old days.
Sure.
But, it's very funny. This week I worked with Tony Gilroy on a movie, literally a week ago today. And we shot 300 people, epic huge scene, and he's shooting single camera.
Wow.
And I was like, I have not seen a single camera shoot. Now
Nolan shoots single camera.
I haven't been on a Nolan
No,
shoot.
I know, but some of these filmmakers are still using it.
But they can do
Yeah.
that, right? They
Yeah.
can make that shot perfect. And
Yeah.
so for people at home, if you don't know, you'll throw 6, 7 cameras into a scene so you don't have to, so that you can make your day, you can get more cuts, you can get more images, so that you can make sort of whatever you want in post. And the reality is that here's a filmmaker, and Tony Gilroy, having a very specific vision as to what the scene is before you go in, and letting those shots be spectacular, like framing those shots, lighting those shots to be pieces of art. And it's just, you don't see that anymore in Hollywood. You see get as much digital information as we can and we'll make it in post.
I remember I was lucky. I've been lucky to interview Steven Spielberg a few times over the years.
Yeah.
And I was interviewing him for BFG, and we were talking about the visual effects. And I asked him a question about if you were to make this movie, years ago before CG, what would you have done? And he goes, it would have all been done through forced perspective and things like that. And then I said, would you do Jaws today with a CGI shark? Immediately he says yes. And then he goes, wait a second, actually no, because the reason why that movie works is because the problems we ran into, which is kind of what you're saying. Is
Sure.
Because he didn't have the ability to do it in post.
Sure.
They had to figure it out on the day, and that's what makes the
Your
movie so
question's
great.
right though.
Yeah.
Would you use CG? And he'd say yes. Of course you would.
Yeah, but then he said actually no because the problems made it better.
Yeah, but but you don't, as the filmmaker he is now, and who he is now and who he's grown into, I'm going to assume they'd be like, yes, I have a CG budget, and you would never have that problem.
Yeah.
Right? There's creativity. The ingenuity was born out of necessity, which is what we're talking about before. And I still think that there are really incredible filmmakers. There's horror genres having an incredible moment. They have less, so they do more with less.
Yeah.
And there's something really beautiful about that, and that is the storytelling. But we are so far from where this interview is supposed to be going.
Dude,
I mean, I feel like
I love it. We're just talking movies, man. That's what I want. I mean, but I do want to talk about your career because
finally, let's get back to my career.
But
God,
but the filmmakers you've worked with, the DPs you've worked with, the composers, Marco Beltrami on Scream, we're talking about some of the best artists in the world. John Waters was a big part of your beginning.
Sure.
And I wanted to ask you, because that's technically your first major film.
First film. That was my first film.
And so I wanted to ask you, as you sit here today and as you still continue to make movies, what did John Waters' direction on that set,
Right.
I'm just curious. I mean, and listen, John Waters is obviously a very unique filmmaker, and every filmmaker is unique in their own voices, but what did John Waters give you that you still use?
Yeah. He's very specifically unique versus anyone else in the world. Well, I'll tell you this, that John Waters, so this is back in, I was 21. And the movie came out in 94. Maybe I was 22 at the time. I'll tell you, the first day of shooting I ever had on a film, which was Serial Mom. Third audition I ever had, which was Serial Mom. But the first day of shooting was the day that Waco, Texas, and David Koresh blew up. So I do have this sort of, an anniversary that I can go back and find the first day I worked. The thing about John Waters that he gave me is, anytime somebody finds you out of the mass of actors out there trying to make their way in this industry, there's obviously it's like a first love. He was my first director. I'll never forget being the first time on set by myself. There's a sequence towards the end of the movie where Chip comes in and he's acting like the agent. And it was the first time I had a phone call, and it was the first time I ever worked by myself. So Kathleen Turner wasn't there. Sam Waterston wasn't there. The woman who played Birdie wasn't there, my girlfriend at the time, in the film. And I was by myself and I was terrified. And, that sort of the exhilaration of that, the first time I ever did an eating sequence where I sat there and every take I was taking huge bites of food.
What were you eating?
I think it was meat. It was like a meatloaf, I think. And I was eating multiple bites. And at some point, Kathleen was like, you should not be eating so much. Because back then, again, you were single camera.
Yeah.
You were shooting on film. And, you're, the big shot, and then you close up, and I'm eating on everyone's take.
So you learned a lot in that movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. Like the first sequence I ever had, I went running down this hill on action. And the action of the movie is that, Birdie and I are running down this hill. And I took off full sprint. I'm 6'4". I'm like, I'm going to show him how fast I run.
Wow.
And, John Waters is screaming, cut. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, everything you do has to fit inside this box. Like, you can't leave her behind. You've got to stay in the box, son. And
fascinating.
Yeah. But it was funny, it's like, there's this thing about.
This is 31 years ago, by the way. And like, you remember like it was yesterday.
Yeah. Well, and these stories, like, the thing you remember are these iconic moments. Like I go back and I'm like, well, what do I really remember? Like what I have told that story before. I remember these like collection of stories, but if I stop and I think, like, I remember Kathleen Turner taking everyone to Joe's Crab Shack. And I was like, she bought dinner for everyone. I remember Kathleen Turner walking down the middle of Towson State and being mobbed by people. During that movie, Sam Waterston told me the story. I was asking about Kathleen and being mobbed. And he's like, there's a great story. There's a great book called The Moviegoer. And in this, and I've referenced this a couple times in my life, but it's an interesting perspective on fame in that, in the book, the hero of the book's walking down the street, and it's 1950 something in a small town somewhere. And he's walking down the street, and this guy stops him for a light of a cigarette, and he looks across from him. And the guy asking for the light is James Dean. Right? And James Dean is like, looks at this guy, and now all of a sudden you're sitting across from James Dean. Right? And now all of a sudden you remember, well, he was wearing like a blue jean jacket and like he had a hat sort of sideways. I had just come from, breakfast, and I just had bacon and eggs, and Marge had a gingham shirt on, and it was about 12:20, and all of a sudden that world around your experience becomes immortalized because across from you is James Dean. And you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And so everything on that day is like you remember. And for James Dean, he just wants a light. And so the transaction of fame, right, isn't up to you. It's how other people view you and what other people take from that interaction. And the thing that Sam was pointing out is that Kathleen Turner was in that moment making it about other people as she walked down the middle of Towson State's lawn. And that she was giving them something to sort of like remember. Like she was giving them a moment. Whereas
That's
Kathleen was sort of like just sort of walking down the middle of Towson State. I don't know. It's an interesting perspective.
Yeah. I love that story. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, honestly, it's crazy because I wanted to start there because I told you at the beginning, I've been collecting movie ticket stubs since I was a kid, and that's why the logo of the show, the date on there is actually the day Terminator 2 opened in theaters because it's my favorite movie of all time. And so I want to go through some of your career with ticket stubs that I have of yours.
Sure, yeah.
And the first movie I ever saw of yours was this film in 1995.
Hackers. Hack the planet.
Dude, look at the price on that ticket.
$375.
Child. I'll never forget seeing that because it was like such a big deal. And that was the first time I came across you as an actor. And you're so electric on screen. There's like you're an electric guitar. Like it's got like there's such an electricity to your performances. And that performance, I was like, okay, now I know who Matthew Lillard is. So what was your memory of that film that when you think about it?
That's hilarious. By the way, that's the nicest way of putting it. I think that there's I watch myself now as I round second base, headed for home in a very long career. I look back on, and like Hackers is like me just getting out of the batter box, right?
Yeah.
You're just trying to figure out how to hit your mark without looking at the tape marks on the ground and trying to, serve the director and also there's this real idea back in the 90s in the world I grew up in and the people I ran around with about being a brilliant actor, about being really great. And to me, back then, being great meant every line had a pack a punch, you know? And now I look back and I'm like, oh, that silly boy is out there just chewing scenery and trying so hard to be exceptional, right? And there's a sweetness about it. There's like an insipidness about it that I look back and I'm like, oh, bless his heart.
Yeah, but he stole scenes. Like the character, like there's just like something like when he would,
not always good though. Not great to be stealing scenes, right?
I don't know. I remember it really well. I remember it kind of locked me into you as an actor. Yeah, and that's kind of what I was getting at. The idea of like, obviously, you know, like that's an electric performance. So like, I'm curious, like do your memories of that film, like obviously, you know, you come off John Waters' movie, you do Hackers, like, you know, what was that transition like into the Hackers world, into that world of that film?
Yeah, it's so funny. So I remember, like, what do I actually remember? Like, what is the memories I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is that, you know, I was asked by the casting director to be the reader, to sit in the room and audition for the women who were going to audition to play Johnny Lee Miller's Angelina Jolie. Yeah. So I sat there for 3 days and read with the women. And over those 3 days, I sort of charmed my way into the heart of Ian Softly. Oh. And by the end of it, he's like, I'm going to fly you to LA to screen test for Johnny's part. Oh. So I actually ended up flying to LA to screen test for the lead in the movie because I had been sitting there the whole time and having these moments. Yeah. And the funny thing is that the through line, I think, of my career is I've always been pretty shrewd at times in my life in terms of putting myself in a position to win. And I knew that if I got in that room, I would be off book and I would do really well with the readings and I'd be funny and charming. And maybe there was a chance I could find a part in the movie. I didn't think I would ever be screen testing for Johnny's part. They obviously made the better choice, but I did get the offer for that movie because I spent the time in that room. You know, look, I remember, you know, rollerblading at 6'4" and just trying to look cool, even though I was like a giant stork out there. Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? And still, like, I took it so seriously. I mean, we all took it so seriously. Yeah. And I think that it's hilarious now you watch it. It's like, what? I mean, I took it seriously. Maybe Johnny and Angie were above it, but you know, I definitely remember moments where Angie, like, we were all in. Like we were all in and we thought that
zero cool.
Yeah. And you really felt like you were making something exceptional. And listen, that movie did not do well.
It didn't?
No. Oh, wow. But 10 years later, as Apple stores started to open up, there was this feedback loop of like, oh my God, you're a serial killer. So that movie started to become more iconic. Because when we got that movie, like they had to give us laptops. Like laptops weren't invented. Wow. Right. And so we were borrowing laptops to learn how to go, you know, plug in your phone cord to go into chat rooms. And that was like, oh my God, a chat room with like, you know, what are you doing tonight? Where are you at? Like flirting with people on the internet. And you're learning about hacking. You know, it's just a crazy little world. But yeah, it was funny.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that. All right, next up. This one's faded, unfortunately, but this is the first Scream.
Oh, it is.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And so that one, obviously, I know you've been asked every question in the book about that film. I want to ask you a question about dialogue delivery, because I think a lot of what you do in that film in particular, there's a musicality to the way Stu speaks. And I remember talking to Christopher Walken. I was lucky to interview him for Severance, and I was asking him about how he comes up with the way he delivers his dialogue, especially in that scene in Pulp Fiction when he's telling the watch story.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, everyone knows that. Yeah.
But the way he described it to me was there's this certain musicality, because he starts to inflect, the voice goes high, the voice goes low. And then I think about when you say like, my mom and dad are going to be so mad at me, you start to almost cry in the delivery of that.
Sure.
But it's such an iconic delivery. And I was just curious how you figured out how you were going to find the way Stu delivered that.
Like, here's my idea. My idea is that, you know, when I directed a movie called Fat Kid Rules the World. The one thing I said to my actors, like, I don't care what you do. Just know every single line backwards and forward, because within that understanding of what's expected on the script, there's complete freedom. There's freedom
so
within
you'll find
form.
something.
So yeah, and so for me, I'm like, I don't very rare. I mean, I've made choices. Like I did something in Barkskin. I had a French accent. Scooby Doo. Obviously, you know, you're working in and creating that vocal sort of. But I don't make those sort of choices. And back then, you know, the way that Wes worked is like there was. You had to do it once as written. And then he wanted variety. He wanted choices in the editing room because he wanted to be able to craft something, you know, and he loved those little idiosyncratic beats. And so for me, a lot of, you know, every time a director wants that, it's sort of where I'm really comfortable because I'm super clear on text. I know what I'm doing. I have intentions. I know my stakes. I'm sort of like dialed in. And so within that, I can let it all go and just be present. And so like certainly with that sequence where I get hit in the phone, my mom and dad are going to be so mad at me. Like that whole thing, like he literally, you know, famously hits, you know, he throws the phone, it hits me in the head.
Yeah.
I drop this F-bomb and he never called cut. And so if you don't call cut, I'm going to keep talking.
Oh, wow.
And so then I pick up the phone and continue the conversation. None of that's written.
I've never heard this story.
Oh, you have?
No,
yeah.
Please.
So he hit me with the phone. It slipped out of his hand because the hand was all bloody. And that's the end of the scene. Like I'm like, I don't, you know.
That line is improvised?
Yeah.
I've never heard the story.
He hit me with the phone and then the whole thing of my mom and dad goes so mad at me. Like that's improv.
So is the take we're seeing in the film the only take of that moment?
No, yeah. No, it never happened before.
So you never reset and did that line again?
No, that was it. In fact,
what the
Rose
hell?
McGowan, like Rose had the other F-bomb. You're allowed 2 F-bombs.
Well, a Scream was R, so you can do as many F-bombs in that one if you want. 13, you could only do 2.
Well, it's interesting. We were almost in NC-17 because of multiple things, but they were only allowed 2 F-bombs.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't because the violence was so extreme.
Maybe, yeah. I'm not really sure, but I know that they cut. Rose had a great F-bomb early in the film, and to this day, I think she's still pissed about it.
What was her F-bomb?
I don't remember because it never saw the light of day. But they said, listen, Rose had a great line, and we kept it in because it's such an iconic, it's become an iconic moment over the stage. But in terms of like the musicality, still in Scream, I do think you see a young actor trying hard in every scene is doing too much. He's chewing the scenery.
You see yourself that way?
Yeah. If you go back and watch.
Oh, I've seen it 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Dude, it's a brilliant performance. It really is. Here's what I think it is. Just to interrupt. Sorry.
No, go. I think what is brilliant is that he has crafted a perfect Jenga tower of performances.
Yeah.
Jamie Kennedy's perfect.
Yeah.
Nev Campbell's perfect.
Yeah.
Earl Brown's perfect. Courtney's like all of them. Skeet. All of us have these moments. Nev.
Yeah.
Is the perfect final goal. He got the right cast and the right script and the right sort of performances to build something in the moment that caught the zeitgeist. 2 years before, 3 years later, who knows?
Oh, wow.
But in that moment, it worked.
Is the drooling of like the blood, was that all in like that?
Yeah, that's all.
You're just on.
That's Matt Lillard chewing scenery.
That's so sick.
That's all Matt Lillard just being an idiot boy. That's that thing, like doing too much instead of just being like, you know.
Yeah, but that's why it works.
I think I'm dying here, man. I think that's improv. There's like
it's a Scream, baby.
It's a screen. No, I think It's a Scream Baby is in like Houston. We have a problem. There's just a bunch of sequence. There's just this, and to Kevin Williamson and Wes Craven's, credit, there was no ego. They wanted those choices.
Yeah.
They wanted those improvs. They wanted those moments. And like I said, and you give me that freedom, I'm gonna thrive.
So I'm going to use that film as a bridge to this question I like to ask actors, which is your relationship to your cinematographer, your relationship to your composer. And I know, like, for example, I know a lot of filmmakers, you don't really have the music on the set, and then eventually you see the film, and after it's all done and locked with the score added to it. But like then you have someone like PTA with One Battle After Another. He screens his dailies and he plays Johnny Greenwood's music there for the actors. So, but Beltrami's score in Scream. But what Wes did so brilliantly in that film was the mixture between score and soundtrack. You had some of the best needle drops of all time in terms of music, but then also you had a great score. And I was just curious what your relationship is to seeing your performance set to music. It could be Scream, it could be any film you've made, but that movie I remember being a pivotal thing for me because of the music and like the song choices. And I was just curious, like, what your relationship to that music and that film was.
Yeah, zero. Zero
Nothing there on set.
I do think, look, music, it moves people, right? There are people out there that will remember the concerts they go to. I'll remember the musical theater or the play I see, right? That does not speak to the animal I am. Now, I will say this. Every time I am forced, I say forced, but every time I'm asked to go digging for emotional rawness, like in SLC Punk or in Twin Peaks. Like if I go looking for that, then I have a series of music that I will go to.
Like a cassette list?
Yeah, I will literally, I have a downloaded playlist called The Work. And I will listen to a battery of music.
What's on there?
Huh?
Is it scores or songs?
No, it's lullabies.
Really?
Yeah. And they'll start singing lullabies. And that brings up all these things, whether it's just an emotional connective tissue for me to connect to like real stuff. But in terms of like, that's just not how my brain works, right? I don't, in terms of as an actor, so many things are beyond my control. So my job is to focus on person across from me, given circumstance, the emotional stakes, my own stuff, like where I'm at as my physical presence, where I'm at with my lines, like all of these things, everything else is irrelevant on the day. Now watching the movie, sure, I'm moved. Watching the movie, I have a reaction, but zero consideration during the movie.
But then obviously when you see the film and you see that music, do you have an emotional response to what it's like to see your performance set to music?
Not really.
It doesn't give you like an extra additive thing of like, oh wow, that really moves me differently than the work I did that day.
Yeah, not really.
Interesting.
You know what I mean?
I appreciate the honesty. It's
I can make something up.
No,
I remember Red Right Hand. But but I do think, like the Splat, like, is that how you say it?
Yes.
Yeah. So I listen to, when I'm writing, when I'm working, when I need like relief from the world and sort of need to zone in, I will go to his music.
Yes.
And I will load in Last Temptation of Christ, Peter Gabriel, load in. Like there are soundtracks in my life that I appreciate as Matthew Lillard. But in terms of the work, watching myself work or the work that I'm involved in, irrelevant.
All right, moving on. Maybe your best role ever, Guy at Party in Scream 2.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
So how did that, I'm sure, again, these are stories, I purposely didn't look up these stories because I wanted to ask them personally. But that is an interesting thing. So Wes Craven had you on that set.
Yeah, I was there. Those are my friends. Right. Like, people went to college. Yeah. I went and did Scream. Right. We would work, I think scene 118, somebody was telling me this last week, it was 21 days long. That's that last sequence in the house.
Yeah.
We would get off of work as the sun rose up at 6 a.m. It's all nights. So you're on nights for a month. We would go to David Arquette's room. Even if you weren't working on that day, you'd be awake because we're working nights for a month.
Yeah.
At 6 a.m., we'd get back. We'd be covered in blood. We'd go to David Arquette's room. what do you do after work? You'd go and have a drink, and we would drink until like noon, right? And we get up at like 5:30 to get into a car at 6 and then go back and do it again. So, those people were my friends.
So you were probably visiting the Scream 2
So I was visiting
set.
it was
Wow.
right down the street. I was visiting set.
So you're not Stu in the movie. You're just guy at the party.
I'm just literally Wes said, why don't you walk through the back of the scene? Maybe he said something like, this could be maybe this is the setup for something else. Or I don't remember exactly. I said, nobody thought of it. Like it was not something like, Machiavellian.
Right.
There is a great story from Scream 1 in which Arquette, they were doing this big sequence and they're panning out big and wide and they're wheeling David's dead body out.
Oh.
And, in the last take, Wes said, this time just give me a thumbs up as you're going out.
Oh, wow.
And David Arquette, in that moment, he's like, people are going to love Dewey. And David Arquette being wheeled up goes like this and is in the next 5 films.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Moving on. So not only are you iconic in the horror genre, you're also iconic in the romantic comedy genre.
What? Oh, she's all that.
And
That's hilarious.
I'll never
I wouldn't
forget.
say iconic, by the way.
Oh, come
you
on.
have a horrible sense of words.
Not at all, man.
Come on.
Dude.
Iconic
this is,
in the romantic comedy
I still
space.
have these.
Because you're a weirdo. How many? You have all of your tickets.
Yeah, but imagine I'm 15 years old and I'm sitting in a theater and I'm sitting here with the actor who's in the movies. It's wild to me.
It is weird. You're having a very strange moment.
Yes.
You've come to Hollywood and you're living out these dreams that, listen, you were doing the right thing, right? I was playing with action figures. You are collecting.
Watching movies.
Yes, and it means something to you.
Yeah.
Like the depth of what movies mean to people is so interesting to me. It's like that Kathleen Turner story we're telling. Like the power of movies, the power of this industry is, it's undeniable.
All right, 2 more tickets, and then I have some deeper questions I want to dive into.
Oh, yeah.
Well, first of all, and she's all that. Just just a memory that comes to mind on that film, just because obviously that was that's a pivotal movie for a lot of people. A lot of people loved that film when it first came out, and they still love it.
Yeah.
So, like, what comes to mind about that film?
Yeah, that to me, it's that dance sequence. I mean, every time that song comes on, "Give It to Me, Baby," I'm like, whoa, I have to go. Doing that sequence and sort of being in the middle of that sequence. There are times in your life where you're like, is this gonna be eggy? Am I gonna look like a dork? Like, is this gonna be bad acting? Right? Like, what is the result of doing this on film? And that was one of those movies that, it totally paid off. It was great. And it's, a lovely little film.
Yeah, love that movie. All right, next one up.
Yeah. Okay. This is 13 Ghosts, sure.
My wife is obsessed with that
She
movie.
is? She has such terrible taste.
No,
in
come
film.
on. Her name is Annie.
You saw it at 3:30.
Yeah, dude.
In the afternoon.
My wife Annie loves this and Scream, but what memories of that film? I love 13 Ghosts. I remember seeing it. It was badass.
My favorite memory of that is watching what's his name? Cyrus. His name is he's incredible. He's in Amadeus. He is a brilliant actor.
It's not Lachlan.
F. Murray Abraham.
Oh, yeah,
F. Murray Abraham.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. It is freezing cold. We're in Vancouver. He's on. They've stacked in the back lot. They've stacked up all these cars. There's huge smoke machines. There's like rain. And he's on the top of these cars. Like he's 30 feet high. And Steve Beck, the director, is like, you've got to go faster. He's like, this movie is not about fucking special effects. And I remember being shivering down below. I'm like, I actually don't think you have that right. I think this movie is really only about special effects. That movie's.
People love it though. That movie has that staying power. It really does.
The movie is one of those things I'm like, it's a glass house and a portal to hell. It's a little hilarious.
Yeah.
But look, I think that Steve Beck did a great job. And I always joke at cons and with fans, it's a terrible movie. It is sort of a hilariously great campy movie. One of the great memories from that is that Tony Shalhoub would fly home every weekend to see his family. And I'd be like, that's crazy. And then cut to I fly home every weekend to see not every weekend, but I get home a lot because, you're being on location. I was like, how do you not just stay here and hang out and go grab dinner with people and have fun and go to the bars? And he was really, on Friday, religiously, he was on a plane to see his family. And now, I'm the same way.
And then finally?
No. Scooby-Doo.
So that unlocks something because you've been playing that.
By the way, you saw that at 10:40 at night.
Damn right I did.
Jesus.
Yeah. And so Scooby-Doo brings me to this question ultimately about how you choose a physicality for a character. I think physicality is so important. I'm a big fan of Buster Keaton. I've been watching a lot of his older films recently and Charlie Chaplin because back then it's just the way the physical body was moving told you so much emotionally. And all these movies that we're referencing, I wanted to go down memory lane a little bit because I want people to understand your range as an actor. And you genuinely have an incredible range. And I mean every word I say about your performances because they stuck with me. And a lot of it had to do with the musicality of the dialogue a character has, but also the way they move, the way they carry themselves. I remember Denzel Washington spoke one time about like how putting a character's shoes on helped him find the character. What is your way in? Is there a constant across all the characters that you go, all right, that's my way in. It's a costume piece. It's a movement. It's a I'm just curious if you see a constant in your physicality.
Yeah, it's a great question. For a long time it was hair.
Really?
It was like you look at Hackers, you look at
SLC Punk.
SLC Punk, he's got blue hair. Like there's just a bunch of stuff. Wing Commander, he's got like this really tight blonde hair. Yeah. Like there's just like I would make choices because I thought if I looked different that people would not read into sort of the difference. The ability, it allows you to slip even further into something. And
Scooby-Doo's a good example.
A great example.
Just because physicality and voice are like key.
Yeah.
And hair.
And hair and sort of everything. I mean, Scooby-Doo is interesting because, he is so iconic. Shaggy is such an iconic character. I grew up with him. Generations have grown up with him. It came out in 1970. Yeah. And so you have this whole history of people who knew the character. And so the reality is that now you're trying to transform into something that people already know. It's one thing if you're Brock Hudson and she's all that, nobody knows or cares. Yeah. You can make choices. It's not related to anything. The further you commit to it, the better off they are, the more it informs you in every aspect of you. But on something like Scooby-Doo, you're like, okay, what is the thing? How does he walk? We all know that walk. And how do you break that down? And for that movie, I hired, two of my dearest friends, Bill and Carmi. I'm going to go see them tonight. What is the name? We're going to go see a play tonight.
And they worked with you on the physical?
Yeah. We worked it together. I memorized every line of the script. We went over every single scene. We broke out the voice. I mean, originally I would scream. There's a legend that goes around that I had screamed myself hoarse every time I did the part. And the reality is that I had to figure out how to do it day in and day out without screaming, because I would get like a raspy voice and like, man, Scooby-Doo, Shag, and that is, it's untenable. You can't do it. So I had to figure out how to do the voice. I had to figure out how to walk.
What was the trick to it?
It's between your lower register and your falsetto. So, like right on that break. Whoa. And then, man, you just kind of play on the break. So
you found that?
Yeah. And then like I would listen to on the way to work every day. I cut together. I had production cut together like 12 episodes of Scooby-Doo, but just using the Shaggy. So then I would on wherever, if it was a 10-minute drive or an hour drive, I would listen, my driver and I, because we were in Australia, so I had a driver every day. And so every day I would go over my script. I'd go over choices and decisions and sort of things we had decided in prep. And then I would listen to the tape on repeat. And I was like, I still have that tape somewhere.
Do you?
But it's like all these cut together episodes of Casey.
Wow.
Because there was, in fact, and I've gone on to do the role now for the last, 20 some odd years.
Voice work and live action.
Yeah. And so now every time I warm up before I do an episode, my warm up is literally like, I'm Casey Kasem, America's like dude, man. I'm Casey Kasem, like Scooby Doo. Oh boy. So that you're transitioning from this iconic voice into Shaggy, and that's sort of like my warm up before I go to work. And you know.
It's surreal. And then one of the things I do want to point out to people is that voice acting is incredibly hard. And I think a lot of people don't realize, they think, oh, the actor goes to the booth and they just sit there and do the lines. There's a physicality in the booth. Because we have to hear that through the voice. And that's why I always think like Robin Williams should have won an Oscar for Aladdin. Because there's something about that. What was the transition for you from the live action to the voice work and keeping the consistency of the character, even though we couldn't see you physically moving through the animation?
Yeah, it's funny. So there are, and I'll just say right now, I think that one of the mistakes Hollywood makes right now is that they hire actors that are not great voice actors to carry films because they're famous. And it's ridiculous when you have people like Grey DeLisle and Frank Welker who are living legends right now. Right now, there are 8 people that do all the cartoons, both male and female, and their ability to transform their voice into like they can do 10 voices in an episode of television and you'll never know the fact that they're doing all 10 voices. And so I don't have any of that. I was like, oh, I'll just, in downtime, I'll just create this book of work on cartoons and I'll just start, this is how I'll sort of, supplement my income. And the reality is that I realized very early on, I don't have those skills. I have one skill to do one voice. I do it very well and I can do it in the booth and I can easily jump into that energy. But everything else outside of that, I don't have those skills.
But you're moving in that booth, right?
I am. There's always some physical thing like, dude, like I'll like these idiosyncratic beats. But
if you eat something, do you eat something? Like if he eats something in the show?
No.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. It's so fascinating. So like physicality obviously seems to be a very important part to you discovering your characters. Like I was wondering, like, do you have moments and memories of like characters that you played where you locked in because of a physicality?
Yeah. I mean,
outside of hair, obviously.
Yeah. No, that's so funny. If you told we used to have rules of acting when I was in theater school, and rule number 1 was do it for the chicks. Number 2, always have a weapon on you. Like they were, it was funny.
Sure.
And having great hair was one of the rules. Like that's how you become a great actor, have great hair. But yeah, the physical stuff, I'm just trying to think, there's definitely things around being emotional. There's like, I always think that this idea that you just said earlier, which I really loved, which is this electric guitar.
Yeah.
Right. I think that you have to have energy going into a scene, even if the scene isn't like screaming or on a 10, you have to have energy going. And a lot of times our bodies, we're working early and we're working late and you don't have that kind of energy. So I am constantly starting with like doing a physical thing, like, I'll do punches, I'll jump up and down. And a lot of times before going to work, I'll break tension in a room by telling people I'm nervous, or I'll tell people exactly where I'm at, or I'll start making jokes, or I will try to break the tension around work so that the work can be carefree and sort of in a relaxed state, but with high energy, if that makes sense, right? I think that 2 people, at some point I stopped working in this industry for a long stretch of time. Like I had a really dry spell after Scooby Doo, and I really struggled whether I was ever going to act again. And we sold our house and we sold our cars, and we sort of like, because I was living as if I was a big star and I wasn't. I was and am a blue collar worker, but I had such a run of success. I'm like, I'm always going to be successful. Yeah. And eventually all the great star market runs end up crashing at some point. And so I was on a crash, and I was like, my father-in-law said to me, you should sell pharmaceuticals and I've told this story in the past, so it's not that interesting. But the reality is that my question is, how am I going to make ends meet? How am I going to feed my family? And my answer for that was to go back and teach. And when you start teaching, you have to apply what you believe in a laboratory of live actors and see if it makes sense. And the one thing I'll always come back to in the teaching is that people in energy is electric to watch. Right? You watch the end of Scream and you see people in like we were on a 10 and you can feel that kinetic energy when people are engaged. The great thing about a horror movie like 13 Ghosts is that, you know, you're running for your life. There is an energy to that. It's not like sitting, you know, a few good men. You've got Tom Cruise. You've got Nicholson. You want me on that wall. That is a man in energy. You watch Leonardo DiCaprio and Gilbert Grape. He's in energy. People in energy are electric to watch. And so for me, the thing I will always go back to is that whether I am, you know, Steve-O and SLC Punk or you're Scooby-Doo and Shaggy and Scooby-Doo, like I will be in energy before we start to work so that there's a kinetic response that hopefully people feel when you're watching me work.
It's incredible. And have you ever seen the movie Babylon?
No.
With Damien Chazelle directed it.
Oh, yeah, with
Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie.
Yes.
So I bring that up because there's a scene in that film that I think about a lot, and it applies to kind of the just acting in general. But there's this moment in the film where basically Brad Pitt's character is, you know, this is from the silent era to the talkies.
Right.
And Brad Pitt's character is a silent star, and he's kind of being pushed out at this moment. And Gene Smart's like a reporter who wrote an article about kind of the death of Brad Pitt's character's career. And he goes to see her, and I'm paraphrasing her, but she says to him in the moment, you know, kind of trying to console him, saying like, in 100 years, someone's going to turn your movie back on and you're going to flicker back to life. And it gives me chills because it's this idea of being immortalized in cinema in a way. And that, you know, I like to ask this question not to be dark, but once you're gone, like the movies that you've done and the work that you've put into the world will live on.
Sure.
And I just wondered what that means to you to know, like, okay, all right, in 100 years, someone's going to turn on one of my films. And even though it's a character, I'm going to come back to life. And I guess a sidebar to that question is, what do you think the story is that you've told in your filmography that would be kind of left behind?
Eesh. Well, you know, it's very funny. If I trace back to why I wanted to become an actor in the first place, like the one place in my life that I was good in any way, shape, or form in school was in history, right? I remember when I was 8 or 9, sitting in the closet with my mom for some reason at her first house in California. I went from Detroit to Southern California, Orange County, California, and reading a history book with my mom and saying, "You're never going to be in a history book." And being like, which means you'll be forgotten. And I was like devastated.
Wow.
And my mom said to me very simply, "You're my history." And so,
I'm gonna start crying.
So the reality is, I actually don't care about movies going forward. To me, the history that I only care about is the history of my kids, right? What they carry about me through their lives, how they walk in the world, how they represent our name and our family, and who they are as people is far more important than, you know, what movie I've done or somebody putting on, you know, a film in the direction in my future. I will say that, you know, in teaching, I get more joy. I derive more joy from watching a kid break through on stage than I've ever had sitting in the audience watching myself. And, you know, acting for me has always been about being in a place where I felt like I was good. And I wasn't good at many things in my life when I was a kid. And so, you know, it's never been about a legacy. It's never been about like being famous. It's never been about like, I have to be in the seminal movie. It's always been about the fellowship of other actors. It's always been about being a creative or finding a place where I felt good or welcomed or that I belonged. right? And so the reality is that if nobody ever sees Without a Paddle, which apparently you didn't see because you don't have the damn ticket.
I saw Without a Paddle, but I
No,
couldn't
I guess
find
not.
that ticket.
No, I guess not. I guess
2013, I think that what year
I
was-
love that you kept She's All That, but not.
Some of them got lost over time, but
but the reality is that I just
I do love Without a Paddle, actually.
it's not that's just not something I've ever considered, or in this moment do I care at all about.
Well, your answer leads me to my next question, because I don't have kids, but I would imagine that the moment you become a father, it changes you as an artist. Has to, in the sense of the way you emote to material, the way you're drawn to material. When you have kids, I would imagine you're watching them experience things for the first time. It's got to be mind-blowing. But I'm curious if you see a division between the artist you were before you became a dad and after. And like the way that you maybe emote to material, or the way you would read a script after becoming a dad.
Yeah.
Do you see a division in the Matthew Lillard before and after?
It's super interesting. Like I think that what I really see the different. No, I mean to some extent, yes. It's interesting. I in terms of kids and who I am as an actor, not really. The thing I do love at this juncture in my life is I looked at the boy when I started at, Serial Mom, and what he was doing and where he was at, to the man in SLC Punk, or the man in, The Descendants.
Oh, Alexander Payne.
Incredible.
We didn't even
movie.
get to that. What a brilliant film.
Incredible movie.
Great performance.
Incredible director.
Yeah. Your dramatic work is fantastic as well.
Thanks. Yeah.
I love you in The Life of Chuck, man.
Such a great
like
scene.
That scene.
It's so great.
It gives me
that
chills.
movie. I love
Evan
that
Bolter
movie.
is an amazing DP. And, yeah. But I'm sorry.
It's great. Yeah. Listen, I think those movies are incredible.
Yeah.
And I take great pride in, doing drama. It's like a chef. A chef can cook chop suey. A chef can do a steak. He can do a burger.
Yeah.
Like we are allowed to do everything.
The Descendants is so good.
I am the sum of all these parts, right? And so I love being funny, and I love being dramatic, and I love everything in between. But I do think that the thing that I realize as I'm sort of like coming around home, and I don't know how many more movies I get, or how many more opportunities I get, I do think that there's a wisdom through time that plays on how I work now, how I approach the work now. There's a wisdom in having taught thousands of kids. There's a wisdom in struggle. There's a wisdom in great success. And like the thing I take great pride in is the artist I am now is, full-bodied and aged and cracking on the edges with gray hair and all the wrinkles. And I sort of take great pride in the fact that, I'm 35 years into a career, and I still get the opportunity to do it. And I love being, we just did Carrie with Mike Flanagan, and we went into rehearsal the first day, and because we had 3 weeks rehearsal, and there's all these kids and all these actors who I love that are Mike Flanagan's work. And I literally started the day by saying, we're about to do a scene and I'm super nervous. I don't know any of you. I'm going to expose myself. I could be bad, and sort of, I don't know why I'm crying. There's like there's a vulnerability of being around for a long time and having people have expectations, and I just love the man I am now in terms of this industry, and having weight and wisdom and experience, and I'm just really grateful.
Yeah, and I think why you're getting emotional is because like I think you're realizing like this incredible journey that you've been on.
Yeah,
And,
it's crazy.
it's kind of amazing when you think about it.
crazy.
That's kind of why I brought the ticket stubs out, because I'm like, that's 30 plus years
Yeah.
of film work. And the reason I stopped collecting tickets after 2002 usually because I got into working at that point. I still have some of them, but that Scooby-Doo one was like the last year I was really kind of like saving
Oh,
them.
yeah.
But we fast forward, we're sitting here in 2025. You have Five Nights at Freddy's 2 coming out.
Yeah.
You have Scream 7 coming out next year. You're just shooting Carrie. That comes out next year.
Yeah. Daredevil. Cross.
Yeah.
Season 2, Behemoth with Tony Gilroy.
You're working
crazy.
like crazy.
Crazy. I don't know what's happening. Everyone's drunk.
But
the entire industry's drunk.
But go back to that story you just told me about selling your house and thinking that your work was over in the industry.
Yeah.
And we're sitting here now talking about 6 or 7 projects that you have coming up. I mean, Scream 7, Kevin Williamson directing it. I mean, this is huge. I'm just curious, like you think about that guy who sold the house and thought that you were done, and now we're talking about 7 projects.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like what do you think changed? What do you think brought you to this point?
Oh my God. Perseverance and time. I just think
teaching sounded like it reignited something. For you.
Well, teaching a lot. It's very funny. I did this episode of SVU with Mariska Hargitay.
Yeah.
And long story short, I had we got to a place where, the expectation in the character was that he breaks down crying. And on the day, the things I was doing before weren't working. And I sort of faked my way through it. And it was really cheesy. And the thing I liked about teaching is I went in and tried to figure out what I believed in, right? Because I had to define it because I had to teach it. And some of the things I held close had passed and they weren't true anymore in this laboratory experience of being a teacher.
Sure.
And so that like really grounded me in my work. And like I sort of like found myself as an artist and then stopped needing this business to validate me. Right. So much of my life, I would call my agent and my manager twice a day before lunch and one after lunch and saying, what's going on? Because I was so desperate for work. And my work is where I was happy.
And he was giving you a validation, like a false validation, would you argue? Because I wouldn't use the word false, but like you were being validated for work that you were doing.
Yes.
But you didn't want to rely on that validation to be happy.
Yeah. There's a thing that Biden talked about in his election cycle that the first time around, which he talked about the dignity of work.
Yeah.
And coming from Michigan and being born and bred in blue collar sort of middle America, like the dignity of work. And with no work, I got great at golf. And there's a humiliation about that because I was like, I should be doing more, right? And for me, the thing I loved was to act, and I was not getting the opportunities to act, right? And so in between, I would start to lose my mind because I was like, well, what am I doing with my life? Like, what am I? What am I? What am I? Other than a dad and a husband, both of those things are great. But I was born, my dad worked incessantly. My mom worked all the time. And so I was raised in the shadow.
You were wired that way.
Of wired being like, what am I doing? And my ADHD, like I have to do something. And so, yeah. So the idea of, I don't know how I got into that. I don't know.
I was talking about like the idea of like where we are now with the roles you have coming out.
Yeah,
and whether or not teaching reignited that for you.
Yeah.
And
So within that, like, so not having work, I started to spin out of control. And like, I was like, well, how do I sort of, what am I going to do if everything falls apart? And that's when Teachy came in. But in this moment, the great thing is that so much of my life was climbing the ladder. That's what we're talking about. I was climbing this ladder. I was like, where am I going next? And all I would do is look up in the things I didn't have.
Right.
Like why am I not working? I want that bigger part. Yeah. I want to compete. At some point I got picked up by CAA, which is a huge agency in town. I'm like, finally, I can compete against Matt Damon's of the world and Ben Affleck's of the world. That has nothing to do with like what agency you're with. It's, but I was like, I wanted more. And the reality is that
it was never going to be enough.
It was never going to be enough because I was trying to define myself by jobs. And the reality is that, if you had given me everything I had 10 years into my business, into my career, if you told me that when I was first starting out, I'd be like, that is success beyond my wildest imagination.
Yeah.
But the reality is that when you're on that journey, all you want is more.
Right. It's like, social media amplifies this so
Yes.
much too. It's like what you don't have.
Right.
Like, I want this, I want that, I want this. But like, instead of being like actually present in what you do have. But it's one of those, like, I battle with it. I have ADHD. I've had depression since I was 14 and OCD. I've been on medications since then. Like, I am always having anxiety about that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so
for
it's
sure.
just an interesting thing.
It's the same thing of like, I am, for the longest time, I was defined by that work. And I didn't realize until much later on that it's really the thing that is the best is the fellowship of the people.
Yeah.
It's the journey. And so at some point I've been able to ease into that. And so now in this moment where I do have all these things, I'm having this second awakening. It is nothing but a joy circus for me, because I'm like, every day I appreciate it. I love the work. I think I'm doing great work and I'm grounded and my life is full.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, man.
All right, I'm going to end on that note with a couple of quick rapid fire questions that I always ask at the end of the interview. Thank you for sharing all that. Honestly, it's been really interesting to kind of hear your journey, and I'm so. I don't even know you personally, but I'm proud of you. In that way, because I'm just happy that you've come to a place where you can accept it and be in it and really enjoy it for what it is. Couple rapid fire questions. Movie you wish you could rewatch again for the first time.
Star Wars.
Oh, just one, just like for the first
Star Wars
time.
one, yeah, for sure. I mean, I was like, it changed. We were talking earlier about Avatar and like, oh my gosh, and VR reality, like all these things. And the reality is that when you saw Chewbacca and you saw, like that storytelling, good versus evil and spaceships, like I was like, forget about it. It was changed my
Favorite shot in cinema.
Okay, stand by. The favorite shot in cinema.
And right before you, Sam Worthington was in here. His was the dolly zoom in Jaws, if that helps unlock anything.
I'm going to say the dollies. No. There's so many. So I'm going to say, do not, you can cut away right now, but I'm not going to answer until I have a really good answer.
Or it could be the first one that comes to mind.
The first one that came to mind is Dinkins at the end of that. Deakins at the end of the James Bond, when the entire field is red from the fire.
Oh,
Skyfall.
Yeah, Skyfall.
When the house, the manor house is burning.
When Judi Dench's character
and
dies.
you've got like all that. That was incredible. But
dude.
I will say this: I'm going to change my answer.
Love Roger Deakins.
There is a moment so I directed a movie called Fat Kid Rules the World, and there's all these moments in that film that I'm super proud of. What stands out to me in this moment is this I don't know if it's a shot though. Anyways, I'm going to say it anyways. There's a moment where in the movie, it's called Fat Kid Rules the World. It's about this obese teenager finds punk rock music. And in this moment, he goes into a rage and he starts eating and he's upset. He gets up and he punches the wall and he's smashing the wall, right? And so the reality is that the actor is a guy named Jacob Wasaki. He's an incredibly talented gift. He's a gift of an actor. And he's like, I am a funny person. I don't know how to access rage. And he and I worked through this beat where I led him into this place that he accessed this rage. Oh, wow. And he has this moment in the movie that is like one of the things I'm most proud of my life, because the unlocking of his full form of art is something I'm incredibly proud of. So you said best shot, but that's where my mind went.
I love the answer. Matthew Lillard, this has been an absolute pleasure.
I refuse. We're staying another 10 hours.
Can we keep going?
We're never leaving.
I'm being kicked
Kevin
out.
McCarthy, do not leave. Do not. I'll be here tomorrow. Same bad channel, same bad time.
Matthew Lillard and I, just host the show with me, man.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you, man. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
It was a great conversation. I had a good time. Thank you for sharing all that stuff. Thank you.